Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. I am very happy to have someone who's a wonderful poet, who is a fantastic author, and someone that over the years I have come to call a friend as well. She's taught me a great deal about a lot of Korean history and much more. But let's start bringing in the guest today. Maija, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful, inspiring session.
Thank you. Maija Rhee Devine is an author and poet. She shares the impact that the Korean War had on her family, the citizens, and her during the invasion of the South by North Koreans. And she also does poetry at other levels as well. And today we're going to hear some of that poetry. So you have two poems for us today, and you're going to share with us about Sijo. And I'm looking forward to listening about that type of poetry as well. So let me pass it over to you, and we'll begin with your poetry. Tell us about it.
This poem was inspired by my host of this Zoom meeting. He and his wife went to Iceland last year, wasn't it last year? And he sent me some wonderful pictures of icebergs that had been broken off from glaciers the size of the Statue of Liberty, and the chunks of broken off icebergs you see in the picture behind him. This is what inspired me to write this poem about the climate change, the climbing, global warming, and the environmental changes, and what environmental changes and global warming and the increase in the carbon emissions uh, are doing to the human race and all living beings, animals in the sea, animals in the mountains, plants on land. All living beings are suffering from climate change and environmental changes coming from that. And we human beings must take control of this carbon emission increasing and climate changing, all the wildfires going on because of the climate change. Human beings, we are responsible to do something about it, to curb these dangerous, destructive phenomena uh, going on and increasing daily. That just crushed my heart that all these living beings are dying off. And so the first poem I will read is about sea animals in Iceland, how they die. White ice chunks, clouds miscarry. Click, click, cell phone cameras closes up on the ear-to-ear grins of tourists on parole from 4-year-long COVID concentration camp. Here we are on black sand beaches in Iceland, with which Armando and his wife visited and sent wonderful pictures and reports. So we are on Iceland, and many chunks of icebergs scatter. Many look like torsos and limbs. Clouds hang low and hover as though watching over the babies they miscarried, broken off from icebergs the size of the Statue of Liberty. Some shapes are dazzling. On a bench shaped one, a couple, Armando and his wife, pose, and her fingers automatically flash a V, victory sign. And there is another iceberg. It's about 3 feet tall, and it has a very thin waist, like a skirt, like a dancer's skirt, like Carmen's dancing skirt that she wore during the bullfighters song. Da 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 dun dun da 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 dun. Remember that tune? And so she, Armando's wife, goes behind this piece of iceberg that looks like a dancer's skirt. And she, quote unquote, wears the iceberg skirt. And here in Arctic oceans, here on soccer fields of ice, polar bears, penguins frolicked, punched holes in the ice, and slurped dolphins. And here, to have sex with females, male walruses ripped opponents' anuses. Now, oceans rise. There is no ice through which they could make holes and catch dolphins and eels and eat it. So they're about to starve themselves to death. No more hunting ground. So thousands of walruses, they climbed the cliffs, rocky cliffs, thousands of them. And they're huffing and huffing and puffing, and they are just one on top of each other, and they just don't have enough room to all of them to climb together. And some of them, they just chew ears off of other walruses in order to make some room for themselves. Finally, they get to the top, but there is no food there either. Their food is in the water down there, but they are a mile up a rocky cliff. So now they have to go back down to the water. So they head back where mackerels, eels, whales, they're all waiting for them to eat. But the walruses, while they were climbing, it got all dusty and their eyeballs are covered with dust. They cannot see. And so what they do is they cartwheel, make their bodies into little balls. Okay. And so these balls of bodies of walruses, they are just plunking into down the hill. While they were trying to climb down, they just drop off into the water. And their bodies are like big sacks of leather filled with bones and blood. And so these body sacks of walruses, boom, boom, they make this noise as they hit um, the rocks uh, and the water. And now thousands of them dead. And their groans, death groans, entangle, the quantum entanglement. If one thing happens on one side of the world, it causes another thing to happen. Quantum entangle. So this walrus's death groans, quantum entangle with other animals in the other side of the world as they groan and die. These animals without homes and without food because of the environmental changes. Thank you. Recycling the New Yorker poems. What to do with 4 years worth of poems saved to read and reread and to recycle? To clip. I used to clip only fiction and poetry and recycled the rest. Now I clip only poems. Now I clip only poems in my jammed to fire hazard level office. Files help themselves to their favorite spots on the floor. Some on shelves by research folders, some in drawers. One pile on the floor several others also on the floor, waiting for bookshelf space. One pile is marked kitchen table. It's a code word for classified material. Secret classified material. Why? Because that pile has award-winning poems. Therefore, I have to get to that pile immediately. It's a secret code, classified material, award-winning poems that I need to read and win awards. New Yorker carries 2 poems per issue. In the year 2020, March 2 carried these poems on page 50, 51, and 58. If I clip without stopping to read, then the second page number, my aging brain remembers where to find the next poem. But if I stop and read, where did the next page number go? My brain lost it. So I have to go to the contents page. Quote, Passion, unquote, by Louise Erdrich. That's a poem about a dog that chews out the armpit of the shirt of a boyfriend gone bad. And where's the second poem? Well, that second poem must have followed the man whose underwear got chewed up by the dog. And then I have to go to the contents page and find the second poem on another page. I call that game my self game with myself. Darn, I forgot. That's the name of the game. Testing my brain, whether it remembers the second poem, what page that is on, without me having to flip to the contents page. So I have the test going on. Now, after 100 tries with myself, testing my brain, am I remembering where the next poem is? After 100 tries, I am beginning to get better. My brain is beginning to remember. I don't have to go back to the contents page. And so I am rich in a pile of New Yorker poems that my aging brain remembered the pages of. So in the game of recycling business, recycling industry, the stocks I have in that stock market of recycling, my stocks are looking pretty good. They are going up. Thank you.
Maija, that was wonderful and delightful. I learned a great deal, as I always have, for your beautiful poetry. You instructed me a little bit about Sijo poetry, which is a Korean traditional poetic form. Could you give me some background on that, please?
Yes. Sijo was the most typical authoritative established structured poetry format from around 10th, 11th century. And at the beginning with the Yi dynasty of 12th, 13th century, all the way down to 1900s, 600 years of Yi dynasty history. All the Yi dynasty Confucian scholars, they wrote poems in this form, Sijo form. It was the one and only accepted traditional, formal, scholarly poetry form. It's kind of like it compares pretty well with Japanese haiku, very established pattern. And Shijo is a counterpart of haiku in that it's a very established ancient poetry form But of course, Sijo has longer lines, 3 lines. Each line consists of 14 to 16 syllables. So to write this poem, you must know how to count syllables. And for haiku too, you have to count syllables. But haikus are shorter than shijo. But shijo, without learning to read and write and recite shijo poems in E Dynasty, men and or women, they were not going anywhere in life without understanding shijo and being able to use it for educational purposes, teaching children, and throughout their whole adult life, they would have stacks of poems they wrote in Chicho format, and that was their uh, lessons about life, their rules of interacting with other human beings, all kinds of philosophy of life, daily lives, descriptions of their daily lives, and daily risk taking, and success stories. All of these went into Shizo poetry. And so it survived 700 years. And now, Mr. Kim Sung-gyo, who is a poet in Seattle, and his partner, Michael Hayfinger, they founded a foundation, Sijo Foundation, and they are holding their fall festival, Korean traditional uh, autumn, August moon festival, Chuseok, uh, fall festival. Chuseok is coming up in August and September, and they are holding a Sijo poetry contest for 4th through 12th graders, and I believe adults can enter these contests too. And there are prizes being given out. And I plan to learn how to write this poem, 3 lines, each line consisting of 14 to 16 syllables. And it can be any subject. It could be romance, it could be philosophical, it could be daily life. Just about any topic will work for this poetry. I plan to learn to write this, and the uh, instructional material I provided you with gives you samples of sujo other people already wrote and won awards. So you can read the samples and kind of base your own draft Shijo poems on the samples. Mhm.
Maija, thank you very much for being a guest
Thank
on our
you.
show, and thank you very much for the insights. I will look into it definitely and try to learn as much as I can from it. But we will refer back to you when I have questions about it as well.
Okay. All
So
right.
very much, Maija, thank you very much. And I want to say hi also to Michael, your husband as well. He's back there also being a great supporter. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had the pleasure and the honor of having Maija Rhee Devine on our show, and we look forward to having her back with us
Oh,
in
thank
future
you.
programs.
Thank you. You are such a wonderful, amazingly interesting host who have provoking ideas and such high level of curiosity. Always is very stimulating to speakers coming to your program.
Thank you very much, Maija. You touch my heart, and I continue to have you on future shows. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye. See you again.